of God Bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, wide with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, there are a few things in the world that you can do that is more important than having a family, being able to sit there in the stands and replay the songs over and over again. See your daughters perform like that is really something else. My little Bella performing God Bless America in front of the one of the local teams, local professional teams around here. It is really something else. I never thought that at this point in my life, I would need to be so involved or would be so involved with both my daughters. But as it is, that's the way it is, right? I'm glad I traveled around the world so much. I'm glad I rented the yachts in Monaco and, did all these types of things. And I'll probably do it again. But right now, I'm really focused on my family, on these two girls. It's really, really important. Of course, I'm still working and everything so much, but they, to 14 and 9 years old, and they really need their papa. They need their papa around. So good morning and welcome. You are watching on the Smart Money Culture TV network on your TVs in Texas and Louisiana, as well as we are streaming around the world, as you know, on great platforms like YouTube and Instagram and Rumble and Facebook and all the rest of them. We have a great show lined up today. There is a lot to talk about, a lot going on. Market's in a bit of a sideways movement at the moment as everybody kind of awaits the response or not response of what's going on over the Middle East. I am one in particular who thinks that as much as everybody thinks we're going to have a big blowout here at the moment, I kind of think that nobody really wants that is running for office. I could be wrong, but I don't think that anybody, either side, wants a big blown out war. And so there's a lot of pressure right now to make that not happen. And that might be what happens. Now, if that happens, we could see a nice move up. I have a recorded segment from Matt Dixon. We're going to play that and see what he thinks will happen in the market and what the charts are telling us. We're going to talk about that as well. But we'll see. So the title of the show today is Navigating Financial Times, Middle East Tensions, IMI tensions, market stalls, migration, and warfare speculation on the Impact Money Show. Team Trump and betting odds predict a victory as Lawfare continues. Where we go from here, nobody knows. We are in uncharted territory, my friends. And that is the absolute truth. We are in uncharted territories. Where we go from here is really hard to say. I'll tell you, I'm here in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of stuff. Some stuff I really don't even get into, but I can tell you that it is, we really got, what the powers that be, and people don't even understand it, and I won't even, I guess, talk about it so much on air, but the powers that be really cemented things in here in the district in order to prevent good people from being able to have influence and to be able to do things here. And that stuff is really, we have to get past it. And it's one of the reasons why, even if Trump gets in, he's going to have a really hard time getting good people around him. And that's one of the most important things, because Trump, one of the reasons why I think a lot of people don't want him, even on both sides. People say, oh, those people want him, but he's not really controllable. Historically, he's not controllable, right? So you have a guy in there, he can he's Trump, right? So he'll come out and he'll say one thing and he'll really believe that, and then if you go in and you talk to him and he's got some more information, well, then he'll change his stance. Like he's not like normally, historically, okay, he's not somebody that is beholden to one side or one storyline. You know what I mean? Like if he gets new information, they'll change his mind. So that could be people like folks that they can control, right? They like folks that they can control. So one asset that is not going sideways, is my friends over here at Sulky the Fun Bear. Let me just pull them up here. Sulky the dog. I called him a bear. Sulky the dog. Sulky the dog, the fun dog. This one, we really, after we featured them on the show earlier in the week, this thing exploded. Sulky the dog. Fun, lovable animal. Here it is sitting at it popped up. It was like less than 100, I believe, when I started telling people about it. It popped up. It went 100, over 100%. It was up above 200 market cap. A natural little pullback now, spiking back up towards 200 or 177 at the moment. I can pull that here to show you this chart. This team is doing the deal, guys. They are doing the deal. And you know what that means? That means that a lot can happen here. Okay, so this chart is loading. You can take a look at this right here. Very nice chart that we have here. This is on the daily, okay? So you see here, boom. Now, what happened was the former founder or the developer sold out. He dumped everything or whatever, and the community took over. And you can see what's happening here. This is the daily chart, okay? And you can see what's going on here. Very, very fun. It's a fun on Solana. It's fun. I think that this thing, not financial advice. Okay, I do all types of different things, and it's fun. And I think that a million here is pretty kind of in the cards. Okay, guys, not financial advice and all that jazz, but we owe $1 million from 177, and that's 5-6x from here on your money. Okay, so that's Sulky. Key SOL. I'll bring up that site again. SOLKIE. Sulky the dog. Sulky the dog. So I'll be talking more about him. So this one is moving. Now, back to the real news. That is actually real news. You can make a lot of money on these things. Okay, don't put in more than you can stand to lose. Okay, but the nice thing about a community takeover, a CTO as they call it, is that all the hands are shown, right? So you have a new launch, and a lot of times you'll have a developer or certain people with big bags, and as the market goes up, boom, they can dump it, and they didn't pay anything or anything like that to get it, right? They just, maybe they worked or whatever. But in a community takeover, of course, everything has been just usually dumped on the market or sold on the market. The community takes control, buys that back as a group, okay, and then starts to function as a group. And that's where we are with Sulky. And these guys they're doing it. So I am on the I'm on the Sulky train. I think we can really push this thing to a very, very market cap. I think $1 million is actually very small for where this thing can go. Anyway, so that's that one's not going sideways. Now the rest of the markets, though, right now, again, they are really looking at it. We have a bit of a spike up in oil as those tensions go, but really not so much. And that is, again, indicative to me to the fact that, hey, look, they I don't know, we'll see. I just don't think that we're going to see a big move here. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't think it's in anybody's interest. I'm sure a lot of people want to. I get that. But I don't think we're going to see it. Okay, here on this, just real quick, just to run you through some of the world markets here, and then I'll pull on his. The Hong Kong Stock Exchange has really been some massive swings. Okay, that's this one, HSI, Hong Kong Stock Exchange. This was down 9% yesterday. But you can see this massive move up here. It was up like 10% in a day on a couple of the days. Really interesting what's going on over there. They're doing some major quantitative easing, as they say, printing of money in that. I like this one because, of course, all right. So just since we started the show, actually, oil has moved down. So an hour ago, as I was putting together what was going to be on the show, oil was up about 0.5%. Now it's down about 0.5%. Again, I would tend to say that they are having the same opinion that I am, and that we may not see major bombing of Iran at the moment. Could be wrong. Maybe some bombing, but nothing major. Nobody really wants this. Look, Iran says we're going to, strut down. I think it's called the Strait of Hormuz. If you guys bomb our oil, or if you bomb our nuclear sites, or this, that, and the other, nobody wants that. That's going to spike oil up real big. Kamala Harris definitely doesn't want that. Okay, she's trying to get reelected or elected as it is. Trump, I don't think really wants that either. Trump says all kinds of stuff. So you just that guy. I mean, he does and says all kinds of stuff. Both of them, actually, they're both one of them, I think, is a bit more. He a bit more does things on purpose than the other one, but whatever. They both say all kinds of stuff. So we'll see how that plays out. I am going to play the market report now, and let's see, and then we can discuss kind of what that has to say here. Let me just pull that up. I had recorded from the great Matt Dixon. Boom. And I will.
Good morning, Bruce, and good morning, Impact Money viewers. So I'm going to pick up where I left off the other day, just looking at where we are in the market. Clearly, we had quite a sell-off following the Iranian attack on Israel, and there's going to be a response to that, I believe, at some point. And so we need to understand where we need to be positioned in the market. So following that sell-off, I said there's going to be a bit of a rebound in the market and then a further sell-off. So following a rebound, I notified on X that I was selling short, going short on a number of assets. I've now closed all of those positions, closed them yesterday, in expectation of the market to rise ahead of the next potential fall. And I do believe another fall is on the way. So what leads me to that belief, apart from just an expectation that Israel will retaliate and that will potentially affect oil supplies? Don't forget, around 15% of the world's oil supply goes through the Persian Gulf, through the Straits of Hormuz, and Iran have threatened to block that off, to blockade the straits, possibly mine the straits, and that would prevent all traffic going through there for some time. And yes, the world would be very unhappy, but it would affect oil supply. Oil price would rocket through. We'll have a look at oil price in a minute, rocket through the roof. And that would affect risk assets because it means it's a massive drag on economies. And the Fed are still talking, obviously, about potentially reducing rates further. We don't quite yet understand why they reduce rates by 0.5%. They must have some data that gives them or leads them to the belief that the economy is slowing rapidly. We haven't yet really seen signs of that. But they've reduced rates by 0.5% despite elevated inflation, still way above target. So they must know something that we perhaps don't. And so we need to keep that in mind as well. That they're expecting a softening of the economy. Now, if we see oil prices spike, of course, the economy will be affected even worse. And that will affect risk assets because there's less money available to flow into these risk assets. So one of the proxies that I use is the dollar against the yen. We saw a big response, a big sell-off in the markets only a month or so back when the Japanese unexpectedly raised rates. When the rest of the world are actually lowering interest rates, the Japanese raised rates. And they raised rates because they got elevated inflation. And that's why it's such a conundrum as to why the Fed are actually lowering rates whilst they've got elevated inflation. Japanese are doing what is normally expected. They're raising rates in an environment of elevated inflation. And when we saw that happen, we saw the yen appreciate massively. So when you see yen appreciate, this chart here, dollar yen, actually goes down. And it's what's called basically a sell-off of the carry trade. Now, the carry trade, just to recap, is basically a trade where people effectively are borrowing yen at very, very low, almost zero interest rates, and they're investing in higher returning things like, for example, US, where interest rates are very high. They can borrow in yen, they can invest in US treasuries. They can also invest in high yield assets, risk assets like Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and even the S&P 500. So that's what happens. People, when there's almost zero interest rates in Japan, they borrow money from Japan and basically invest into risk assets. Now, when things happen like Japan unexpectedly raise interest rates, people quickly rush to repay the yen debt. And what that does, it draws money out of the risk asset market, but it also appreciates the yen. And basically, it's a sell-off of the carry trade. So that's why we saw this massive sell-off downwards when we see risk in the market. So this is a great proxy for risk. So I need to try to understand where we're going next with dollar yen. Now, at the moment, it does look very much like we've got an ABC move higher. Now, in Elliott wave terms, ABC is a corrective move. And so it means that the trend here, the next move is likely to be downward. So I've actually got an ABC down, an ABC higher. This would normally be seen as part of a larger flat correction. A flat correction is what's called a 3-3-5 correction. So ABC, that's downwards, that's 3. ABC upwards, that's 3. And then a movement down in probably 5 waves. The C wave here is actually clearly itself made up of 5 waves, and that's perfectly normal. So even within an ABC, we have fractals, so waves within waves. So anyway, 3, 3, 5 on a larger scale. So I'm expecting a big move down in the dollar yen. That would mean strengthening of the yen. That means I'm expecting there to be repayment of yen debt, which means they have to withdraw money from risk assets, withdraw money even from US dollar investments, and pay back to yen. That would cause strengthening of the yen and push this down hard. That would mean basically a sell-off of the carry trade. That is basically a sell-off of risk assets. And so I do expect risk assets, S&P 500, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Solana, XRP, etc., to sell off in a relatively near future. Now, what could precipitate that? Now, we've got lots of things that can. We've got macroeconomic conditions. Clearly, we don't know what's going to happen with interest rates, what's happening with the US economy. It's still very much in the balance. What's happening with the US election? There's a lot of uncertainty there, and markets hate uncertainty. So that's one risk. The big risk that's really hanging over the market is, of course, the geopolitical situation. We did have, no matter what side you're on, we had an unprecedented attack by Iran on Israel. They threw virtually everything they got at Israel. Now, Israel came out relatively unscathed, or pretty well completely unscathed, but nevertheless, Israel may see this as the opportunity to eradicate the Iranian nuclear program, which is a big risk to Israel. If Iran get nuclear weapons, it'll put them on a it put them in a much more powerful position to threaten Israel. And make no mistake, Iran are a threat to Israel. They have been, they are, and they will continue to be for the time being a massive threat to Israel. So Israel are very much aware of this. Iran is the big military threat in and around Israel. So we've seen Hezbollah, we've seen, in Gaza, we've seen Hamas, and we see all these threats in and around Israel. These are basically thorns in their side. They're painful, but they're not a major issue. They don't have any military strength of their own. They're actually funded and supported by Iran. So Iran is the major powerhouse that's the threat to Israel. And they're the ones that have this nuclear program. They are enriching uranium. They potentially already have enough enriched uranium to produce nuclear weapons. And Israel want to set back their nuclear program. So it may well be that Israel use this opportunity to attack the uranium enrichment facilities, which are deep underground. It's going to be a major operation to do this. So this, I believe, is what's probably on the cards. And Iran might cause that blockade in the Straits of Hormuz to block the oil and also other production oil transportation and other transportation through the Straits of Hormuz. So if that happens, it's going to be a major fallout in the markets. That's what it looks like right now. I've got ABC higher. The next wave should be down. It should go below this wave here. So a massive sell-off in dollar yen. I believe that equates with a sell-off in the market. So where are we in the markets? Well, let's just jump to S&P 500. It's at all-time highs, so which is amazing. We may even have a bit higher to go, but I do believe we're on the cusp of a turnaround. Maybe, I don't believe it's a terminal turnaround. I think actually that my longer term view is the markets are going to rally massively, and we will look at that longer term view in a minute as well. Even with dollar yen, if that's a flat correction, ABC down, just jump back to dollar yen just to show you. If that is a flat correction, we get this massive sell-off, but following it, you should then get a massive rally. That would equate with a massive rally in the markets. So whilst there might be a nasty, painful sell-off, basically for me, that will be an opportunity to jump in long, because I think we're then going to get an amazing rally in the markets when we probably get some sort of massive peace initiative in the Middle East, things looking good, maybe after an election, maybe even a soft landing perhaps in the US with the economy. So I think everything will look rosy for a time, and we're going to get a massive rally. So, I'm excited about that massive rally to come, but I'm not jumping in early as yet. So just to go back to SPX, as I say, I think we're due a pullback soon, but I think there's going to be another push to all-time highs. That's also reflected pretty much in gold. I'll just touch on gold very briefly if I can find it in my charts here. There it is. So gold is actually, we've had a bit of a sell-off from the, sorry, that's XRP. Where am I with gold? I've got gold on here, yeah. Yeah, so we've had a bit of a sell-off. Looks like an ABC correction down in gold. Gold is, of course, a protection against risk very often. People use it as a safe haven. It looks like it's a corrective downward move, so I do expect more upside in gold. So we've been promoting gold throughout this show that's been running now for about a year, and we've been very bullish gold all the time. And even, a push up here, probably we're still on larger fractals, still got higher to go still on gold, but I think there's new all-time highs to come on gold in the not too distant future. Even if we get a bit further sell-off, I think gold is looking, and precious metals are looking really positive there. I want to jump over next to Bitcoin. I think so. Short term, I think we've had ABC higher from this point here. So we've had basically what seems to be a 5-wave move down, ABC higher. I expect another 5-wave move down at least, potentially a substantial move to the downside. So I am expecting that in the near future, and I think that will correspond with this military escalation in the Middle East. So I'm expecting, following ABC higher, we expect at least 5 waves next to the downside. Minimum target 57, could well go way beyond that. That's just a minimum target. Could well go way beyond that. If this isn't A, this is a B, and this is a C higher, we could actually go below this level here, the bottom of this level here. So we could revisit the major support level around the 50,000 level for Bitcoin. So there's a lot of potential bearishness short term on Bitcoin, but let's just look at the longer term. This is the 4-hour chart. Let's look on the daily, and I'll probably scroll out a little bit so we can see where we're at. So make no mistake, this is actually a bullish chart longer term. So whilst we do expect, if I've labeled this correctly as an ABW down, an ABX up, we've got an AB Y down to finish the correction. But make no mistake, this looks like a corrective move. It's all overlapping, following a very impulsive move, which actually started right from the FTX low. And remember, in my long-term chart, we predicted that as a long-term low at 15,500 for Bitcoin, as a major turning point for Bitcoin. We predicted that well in advance, and it's exactly what happened. But now this is just, I believe, a consolidation. Now, we've got to be careful because although it's a consolidation, we expect new all-time highs on Bitcoin. Short term, there is potential for another substantial low. As I say, we could easily test that 49. I mean, where were we here? We're at 49,000 here, 48,000, 49,000 here. So we could easily test and even possibly dip slightly below that level. But following that, I'd expect substantial upside. But short term, I'm looking downside. So I'm only looking at short positions, or when prices dip, I'm looking to buy dips to DCA, but I'm only looking to buy substantially lower dips because I think there's a bit of downside to come. So I'm not jumping in long at the moment. I'm keeping my powder dry. I've actually taken all risk off at the moment. I'm not positioned. I'm actually out of the markets completely right now as we speak. That may change depending on developments. If we get a nice little push higher, I may be looking to sell short with good risk reward, potentially on a lot of different assets. But as I say, I closed nicely in profit on my shorts the other day, but right now I'm out. Waiting, we might get, if Israel delays their attack, we'll probably get the markets drifting higher. And again, that's exactly what I said would happen, that following the last sell-off, markets would drift higher, and they're just drifting gradually higher. So that's a long-term view, much higher for Bitcoin, but short-term potential downside for Bitcoin. Just going back again to the shorter term, go back onto my 4-hour. In fact, I'll go into really relatively short term, go onto the 1 hour to see where we're at on the 1 hour. So again, we can see here on the 1 hour that potentially we've got the ABC higher. I think we've had, well, basically we're just correcting higher from this move down here. It's just corrective, it's choppiness. This move up here is overlapped very much by this move down here. So there's choppiness still. We may even get a little bit push higher, but I still think there's substantial lows to come. And I think the timing of that will all depend on when Israel respond. So overall here, as I say, I'm expecting short term substantially lower. Let's just look at where we are in some of the other assets. Obviously, we'll look at Ethereum. I've looked at other assets as well that have been requested on X. Ethereum clearly, again, looks like it's corrected to the upside. So I'm expecting substantial downside reasonably soon. This cannot, I don't believe this can be counted as impulsive to the upside. It's too overlapping. Not like this movement down, which is, you know, quite an impulsive downward movement. This movement up is very corrective. So even the movement up here was, this movement up here was overlapped by this movement down here. You can see it moved down to lower than this here. So it's all overlapping sideways movement. So I'm not comfortable in taking long positions at this stage. As I say, I'm out of the market there. We will just look at a couple of others that have been asked for short term. I've been asked at Jasmy. I think I'll scroll out a bit here. Again, probably look at the daily again. There we are on the daily. Looking at long term here, because a lot of people have got an interest in Jasmy. They think it's an amazing token. I just look at the fundamentals and the technicals here. So the technicals here are basically showing me that there's a head and shoulders here. Remember before this, Jasmy hit massive highs way above this, but I'm looking at the recent price action. When I say recent, over the past, you know, about a year, we seem to have a head and shoulders. This is a very common, very simple chart pattern, chart formation is quite indicative. It's not amazing on its own, but when you add it to other indicators, it can be quite powerful. So we have the head here, left shoulder here, the right shoulder. You can even say it's here or here, but wherever it is, we expected downside. Now, to support that view, we did have basically hidden bearish divergence here. So this is telling you there's a downward trend, and it's telling you this downward trend is likely to continue from this point. And you can see precisely it did that. It continued. So a lot of people were saying, I'm talking, not talking, I'm wrong. They were talking about cup and handle, which is a ridiculous pattern as far as I'm concerned. It hasn't worked out. It just went according to the correct indicators that I believe we're using here. With this hidden bearish divergence, it told you there's going to be a sell-off, and there's a massive sell-off. Looking at this head and shoulders, there should be substantially more downside to come. Even if we get a short-term minor correction up, there's a lot more downside to come. And we also came from massively oversold here on RSI, and looking on different time frames, we'll go back to the 4-hour here. Basically we've come from massively overbought RSI here. So I think there's still downside to come for Jasmy. Look at a couple of others I've been asked to look at again. Sui, we may, maybe wave 5 should have been here. We've still got, let's see. Okay, we still have some regular bearish divergence here. So again, that's quite good. That was indicating downside to come from here, which is exactly what happened. So we've got lower lows in RSI. They still came from overbought positions. So here we had overbought RSI. We had regular bearish divergence. Price sold off as expected. And you've always got to keep in mind that any proposed top in the market, you've got to look for potential further development. So never be stuck, never be absolutely married to your interpretation. Always be data dependent and watch for data, and be prepared to change your labeling if necessary. Not to say the labeling's useless, but it can be wrong, and you have to watch for developments in the market, and you can improve on it. And don't forget, there are no certainties in anything, in your labeling, in the markets, or anything, but there are probabilities. And if you get the probabilities in your favor and trade with the right risk reward, you can make profit out of these markets. So I did touch before on XRP. I'll look at it again now. Again, just focusing, going back again, a bit longer term on, sorry, I keep getting mixed up with these XRP and gold. Here's XRP. Short term, we can see there's a consolidation here, and we'll look at that in the shorter term, but it's a consolidation higher. It's basically a bear flag. You've got a flagpole down, you've got a flag here, which is slightly higher sideways consolidation. We expect more downside. There's a big target zone I've got here. So the previous target is this pivot low here. I've also done some Fibonacci measurements here to look at extensions from the previous high. So we've got a big target zone here. XRP potentially much lower, aligns with my expectation. All the jigsaw pieces fitting together. I'm expecting a substantial sell-off in the markets reasonably soon. So that in mind, this bear flag aligns exactly with that expectation, and my targets are much lower. So from a 53 cent current price in XRP, I'm expecting a minimum of 33 to 43 cents in XRP. So substantially low, which is talking 20 to 40% lower from where we are currently in XRP as a sort of target zone. So you can see my expectations and bearishness. There's two others I'll just look at because, again, I've been asked by the community. This is daily. I'll just jump back to 4-hour here. These are common tokens that people love to trade, and so it's good to just again answer people's requests. And again, we seem to have here some kind of head and shoulders pattern. We've got the top of the market is the head. We've got a left shoulder, a right shoulder. The right shoulder, is almost equal to left shoulder. So that was a resistance in itself, an overhead resistance. You can see we spiked higher to that pivot there precisely and sold off. And what gave us the sell-off as well, it's on a different time frame, but we did have some regular bearish divergence, signaled the sell-off here. And I would expect it will continue. Minor corrections along the way, but If I was selling it, I'd look to sell highs. I don't sell at a market low ever. I'll look to sell highs in the market. So here was the point to sell, and then protect your position now in a guaranteed profit and potentially carry it lower. So Link, this is what we're looking at here, chain link. So Link is a very popular asset, but there's a lot of downside ahead, I believe. And then Near Protocol, another majorly popular asset. Go back to daily first of all on Near Protocol. And once again, we see a situation here, first of all, of lower highs and lower lows. So that's telling you of a downward trend. We see it's potentially corrective, but we do see there's more downside ahead here, because here we have hidden bearish divergence telling us from this point it's a potential sell. We also had mildly overbought RSI, another signal to sell. Downside target, this is a sort of minimum. We may even go beyond that, but there are downside targets ahead. We've got potentially a small 5-wave move here, a small 3-wave move up. So I'm expecting substantial further movement to the downside. So overall, I'm quite bearish. I did say I'd just touch on oil, and we'll probably finish on oil, I think, to see where we are. At the moment, although this looks like a 3-wave move to the upside, this is a larger 3-wave move to the downside. This can still be just part of a larger impulse to the upside. So I do think, obviously, if something were to happen in the Middle East, oil is going to rocket. RSI is sort of, is quite in a medium territory for RSI. So that's perfectly valid for a massive rally ahead. That's quite possible. As I say, we haven't overlapped the downside here, haven't overlapped this first wave, so there's still potentially a 1-2, 1-2 count, and with a massive third wave to the upside potentially to come. And also, this from the very top looks like corrective ABC to the downside, so I would expect there to be an impulse to take us above this previous here, and even above previous highs. I mean, don't forget the previous high, which was, I can just scroll back a little bit to show you where the previous high was at the height of the Russia-Ukraine, when that really kicked off. That's when oil spiked to this high here. We can see here, I've got it labeled here. In fact, I'll scroll out so you can see my labeling. That was the Russia-Ukraine war, where we saw the all-time high. The COVID was the all-time low, where we had basically negative oil prices. Russia-Ukraine war was high. Now, think about it. Russia-Ukraine war gave us a high in oil. Now, if we get Middle East war escalation at the moment, it's a sort of regional war a little bit, but it could escalate and become a much bigger affair, depending on what happens between Israel and Iran at the moment. So Russia-Ukraine war caused high in oil. We've begun to see with the first salvo from Iran against Israel, we saw a spike in oil. But if it's escalated, we could see a much higher spike. And again, it'll be just like this Russia-Ukraine. If we see the Straits of Hormuz blocked, we could see a massive spike in oil to take us possibly even beyond this $130 in oil. That would be really negative risk assets. But I then see, as I say, a major peace initiative taking hold, which could be really, really positive for risk assets. So you can see my concern, my worry in the markets. I think the evidence supports caution in the markets. So I would urge caution and just wait to see what happens. Very, very interesting times we're living in. I'm sure Bruce has got an awful lot to say on the geopolitical situation, also the political situation in America. Let's see what's going to happen there. So that's it for today. As I say, I'm just keeping my powder dry right now. And I guess that's what people do, and just await to see what's going to happen on the geopolitical front. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, everybody, and look forward to catching up soon. Bye.
The great Matt Dixon there with his Market Watch report. I'll tell you what, he brought up a number of very good points there. And yes, I always do have a lot to say about the political situation. To be honest, I talk about it so much that I'm kind of at a point in my life where I reached it actually a few years ago, and now I'm even more there, understanding that a lot of these things are like the tide. It's like the tide. Like, how do you stop the tide? The ocean tide. How do you stop the tide, right? So understanding a lot of how that goes. My father was in Vietnam. My grandfather was in World War II in Korea. They actually were going to send my grandfather to Vietnam, and my father was 17 years old. And he said, "What are you guys doing?" "I'll go to Vietnam if you don't make my father go." And they said, "Okay, son, come on over here, sign right here, buddy." 6 months later, he was shooting them up at 18, I think. By the time we got over there, I did 2 tours over there. So I never went in. I didn't go in because I understood, my father and my grandfather understood war at that point, and they understood that all wars are bankers' wars. And if I wanted to go in and fight the bankers' wars, then that was fine and honorable and all these things. But if I didn't want to go in, knowing what I knew and knowing what they told me, that was fine too, and that was honorable too. And we were shooting up Panama as I came of age. We were over there in those narco wars, right? They were shooting up, trying to get Noriega, because Noriega was controlling the trade of narcotics. And I said, I don't think that's for me, guys. And they said, yeah, I hear you, brother. And so that's how that went. Of course, we've done a number of things since then. So I again think, and this is just my view, we'll see what happens. I don't think either side wants a big response on Iran. So could be surprised, but I don't think we're going to get a big response at this point. I don't think the U.S. elections wants a big response. I don't think the world economy wants a big response. And I think that there's a lot of pressure on not a big response. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that there won't be any response. These guys are responding. They're always responding. It's always funny, right? It's responding. This one's responding. Well, this one's retaliatory. There's a retaliatory strike. It's a retaliatory strike. Sooner or later, somebody needs to stop retaliating, or else we don't get anywhere, guys. We're just always retaliating in this endless war, which is actually what the banks want. The bankers, that's what they want, is these endless wars. It is their goal. I wrote a song about it. It was called The Rothschild's Tax. The Rothschild's Tax. Maybe I'll play that real quick. But actually, it might even be better if I just read it, because the recording, I don't have a great recording of it yet. But when I read it, it is pretty interesting, because that is really what I wanted. Rothschild's tax. It's Rothschild's tax. That's so funny. So if you go here, this is worth showing you. So if you go on X and you go from me, Networks Manager, pound Rothschild's tax, it's completely invisible. This is worth showing. Look at that. There's nothing. No results. There's no results. And if you go to latest, here we go. All right. Here we are. Talk about the cost of groceries. Okay. Here we are. The Rothschild's tax. Rothschild's. Let me see here. I do have. Here we go. Hey, listen up. I got a story to tell about the Rothschilds, the ones who ring the bell. In the shadows, they've been pulling the strings, controlling the world with their money things. They do the tax. They do the Rothschilds tax. It comes off our backs. And that's on TV, so that is whack. Since 1913, they've owned our nation. Inflation, wars, and manipulation. The Rothschilds tax is inflation, a sneaky way to fund manipulation. Endless wars are their goal, and with this tax, they're on a roll. Inflation takes away our wealth, a hidden tax upon our health. The Rothschilds' plan is so sly and slick. They've been able to keep us under their grip. Then we have the reprise. It's the Rothschild tax. It's the Rothschild tax. It's the Rothschild tax. And I'm on stage there with the coin heads. We'll be performing this multiple different places over the next year. So when you feel your wallet shrink and wonder why the world's so bleak, remember the Rothschilds and their evil plan to steal your money and fund their clan. They've got the power and they've got our gold, but we've got the numbers and we're not sold. The endless wars they fuel and fund will come to an end as this song is sung. They do the tax, the Rothschild tax. It comes off our backs. That stuff is whack. Screw their tax, the Rothschild tax. It's time to stand up and give them the axe. It's time to rise up. It's time to fight back. Let's take back our gold and break their stronghold. We'll usher in freedom and take back our rights. We'll take back our money and end this fight. The Rothschild tax. It's a little song I wrote about the Rothschilds tax. So a couple interesting things about that is that the IRS and the Federal Reserve the Fed started in the same year. I dare say by the same people. Okay. All right. There was no federal income tax before. And of course, it's supposed to be voluntary. This guy right here has tried to end the Fed. He has a bill out there to end the Fed. We actually do have to end the Fed. The main reason we have to end the Fed, and it's not that I'm being mean or that I hate people or anything like that, but the reason we have to end the Fed is because they've completely bypassed our governmental structure. We don't have any control anymore over our government because the Fed pays their salary. And that's a very important statement for everybody to understand. The cartel, the banking cartel that is in charge of the US dollar, that can print whatever they want, makes the monetary policy, answers to nobody, is owned by 11 families, privately held. They pay the salaries of our congressmen and women. And that's why they don't work for us, because they don't. They don't work for us. We have an illusion of a functioning government, but we really don't have one because they pay the salary. And if you don't understand how they pay the salary, let me explain it, hopefully, in a way that you'll understand. The government has no money, zero money. The government doesn't have any money whatsoever. Back in 1913, Woodrow Wilson he was running for president. And the cartel, the banking cartel, said, hey, look, Mr. Wilson, we'll make you a deal. We'll fund everything that you want to fund. You will never default on any payments. We'll give you whatever money you want, and we'll make sure that all the bills of the government are paid. You can do whatever you want. Just give us the power. Let us control the monetary policy, and we'll make sure that you always have all the money that you want. Of course, people wanted to go to World War I. We went to World War I the next year, okay? So Woodrow Wilson probably wanted to go to World War I. I don't know. It's so long ago. It's, over 100 years. So you can read in history. You can put together the pieces, but I wasn't there, right? I wasn't there. None of us were there. But this is what happened. And this is how they sold him. They financed his presidential run. And he delivered. In the dead of night on December 23rd, 1913, he pushed through the legislation, just like they do it here in D.C. all the time, right here in the Capitol. They push through the legislation in the dead of night, and they tell everybody, if you don't pass this, you don't get to go home to your family. Actually, this guy told us that's what they do. You don't get to go see your family if you don't pass this bill. For Christmas, you're going to miss your family for Christmas. He told us. That's what they do. That's what they do every year. I should play that clip. I don't have time to play it this morning, but I'll play it tomorrow. He said that's what they do with the omnibus, with the funding bills. They wait till the last minute. There's all this theatrics and everything else, and they wait till the last minute, and they say, you're not going to get to go home for Christmas if you don't pass the bill. You can't read the bill because you don't have time. But if you don't pass it, you can't go home and see your family. That's what they did. They were doing it back then too. So that's what they did. He pushed it through. Okay. And that gave the cartel, the central banking cartel, the power to mint the money. So now everyone thinks that Nixon took us off the gold standard, but Nixon just stopped giving gold to other countries as they wanted to cash in dollars. We're probably out of gold. Nobody really knows. Well, some people know. I theorize we're probably out of gold. Probably why Nixon took us off the gold standard, because we didn't have any more gold to pay the other countries. So, the gold standard's over, guys. That's it. But there wasn't really a gold standard for that anyway. A lot of people don't understand. Even as I was younger, I thought you used to be able to take your dollars and trade them in for gold. But you could never do that because owning gold was illegal between 1933, when Eisenhower confiscated all the gold with the central bank, and the Fed, the Federal Reserve, the banking cartel, has all our gold. They confiscated all your family's gold. They confiscated it all and told you they were going to give it back, and they never did. They gave you $25 per ounce. An ounce of gold is like $2,600 right now. That's how much they've inflated and diluted the market. So back to how they pay the Congress, how they pay the Congress, how they pay the president, how they pay everybody. They pay everybody. They're the boss. They're the boss of the United States. They're the boss. They pay the bills. Whoever pays you, that's your boss. I think we can all agree on that. You get paid by somebody, that's your boss, right? I mean, maybe you have a contract or something, not your boss. But I mean, you get a salary or something like that. They're your boss, right? They can fire you. We see that. What did Sanchez? He did whatever he did wrong. I mean, fired him. So, the government has zero money. The Fed prints or digitally mints the money to pay all the bills. So, government says we need this. The Fed says okay. Sends to Treasury, print this. Treasury prints it. Boom. That's how it works. If the Fed has total control, the cartel has total control. If they say no, we're not printing it, that's it. If they don't like what you're doing, they can get rid of you. They also, I mean, it's like not just like boom, fire you, but obviously they have total control. They're the ones that pay the bills. So the government relies on the Fed to give them all the money, and that's why everything keeps getting more. And that's why they keep trying to assassinate Trump, because Trump says I'm going to lower taxes. And the other part about this, and I got to go, but the other part about this is that the amount of money that is collected every year in the federal income tax just happens to be the exact amount of money that is owed on interest to the cartel on the money that has been quote unquote borrowed. But here's the other part of it. It's not even borrowed, because they don't have the money either. The cartel doesn't have the money either. All they do is print up the paper money. And by doing that, they dilute the money supply and they take the value from me and you and everybody else who holds US dollars and uses US dollars. They dilute the money supply, and that's why inflation goes out of control. You have guys like Elon Musk coming on. Overspending of the government is what causes inflation. He always stays away from the banking cartel. I get it. They're probably the ones who off JFK, his brother. Maybe they're the ones that went after Trump. We have to end the Fed, guys. I love you. I got to run. I'm going to play my video here. And I'm going to You guys are great. I love you. I'll be back on your TV in about 5 hours and be back streaming again, of course, with another show tomorrow. Cheers.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.